Welcome to another episode of the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, the podcast where the future of IT unfolds, and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts in the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper, and today I have the pleasure to have Ryan Jamieson in the show. Ryan is the CTO and founder of Calybre, and it's great to have you here, Ryan. Welcome.
Jasper, thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. I'm really excited about it.
Me too. For the listeners, for the viewers, can you give us a little bit of an introduction into yourself, into Calybre, of course, and what your role in the company is?
Certainly. Interestingly enough, Jasper, I didn't ever start off my career in IT or data. I'm an engineer by training, and interestingly enough, a mining engineer. And I happened to enter the IT space over many hundreds of years ago during the Y2K period, where they were looking for anyone who could look and utilize computers. So I managed to get into it, and over that cycle, I built out a particular passion for data and consulting around data. So I was part of a fairly large data and analytics company. Actually, we did a lot more, and I was CTO of that previously. And my current role is I'm the CTO of Calybre. Calybre, we are a specialized data and analytics company with the ability to do and delve into the whole AI machine learning space as well. So it's something that we've seen, 20 years ago, it was important, but today it's even more important. So for us, it's something to seize. It's something that we've got experience in, and as Calybre, we love to engage in issues that are surrounding data and analytics and helping customers solve their problems.
Well, thank you for the introduction. And that's also one of the topics that I want to dive a little bit deeper into, which is the sort of the data analytics as a service proposition. Of course, I hope most people listening are familiar with business intelligence, data analytics, those types of tools. But I was really curious about this proposition, the data analytics as a service, and would want to really understand what it entails and why you think it is relevant and important for modern businesses.
Certainly. I think just to go back a step is that data and the use of data is applicable across any business. It doesn't matter whether a person is in a small business or in one of the largest companies in the world. Data is one of those things that's the lifeblood of being able to make solid business decisions and seize opportunities in the market as they show themselves. And typically things show themselves via data. So what we've seen is that when you are engaging in building out data assets, data capability in an organization, is that you need a team of multi-skilled people. Everyone looks for that one star that exists that can do absolutely everything. I think I've been in the game long enough to know that that's a wish. They do exist, but they are very, very few and far between. So from a data and analytics as a service, what we decided to do was, how do we bring a multi-skilled capability into an organization to solve their data problems? Now, why we need a multi-skilled set of people is that every person's or every company's data requirements are different. You may be in the same industry, but effectively the way you operate is different. So what we do is we look for what are those business problems that data can solve, and then bring the right team and capability to solve that. I think one of the analogies that our CEO, Alexa Bishop, uses a lot is she calls it a garden service for data. So a garden service can come in and they can help you landscape your garden. And then what they can do is they can help you maintain that garden over a period of time. And then ongoing, you can look at new opportunities to make your garden look better. And that analogy, I think, works really well with data analytics as a service. We can come in and help an organization establish their data practice with capability, and then equally enable them to run that over a period of time, as well as be able to identify new opportunities that can be brought into the data and analytics space.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I think quite some companies are used to some sort of ongoing like partnership in terms of IT, whether it's based on their infrastructure, their cloud, those types of things. I think data analytics, although it is very important, and as you said yourself, it's about solving business problems with data. It's more on top of that foundation, let me say it like that. So in that sense, I think companies are pretty new to it. They are typically, I think, used to just using a tool, a BI tool, or just trying some things themselves. But I can really see, just like you mentioned yourself, especially with some smaller sized businesses, is that they are not capable to put that team together that they need. Which I think it is very, very relevant to have some outside experts who can help you go through that journey, spot some opportunities, spot the bottlenecks within the business, and constantly get to a higher level, in this case, in terms of data analytics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think from
Um,
our side as well, Jasper, is part of those capabilities and expertise aren't just the people who wrangle the data and put up the pretty dashboard. There is still that back end layer, making sure that your data has longevity over whatever time period makes sense. So part of what we offer is looking at what are the relevant architectures for that data as we equally produce those analytics and insights for the business.
yeah. And are there any other challenges you see in those businesses in regards to implementing data analytics effectively? Any common things, common themes that you see with in the market?
Yeah. So I mentioned the access to skills. I think skills are probably your primary challenge, in the sense that it's not only people with data skills, it's people with relevant data skills. So one of the things that we believe in as Calybre is to invest forward so that we can seize the capabilities and the trends that are coming out in the market. Yeah, if we look over pretty much the last 18 months, maybe 2 years, the change in the data market has been extreme. I think with the announcements and the capabilities brought on by some of the AI models and things like that has really elevated the need of data. But the reality is that things are changing, and they're changing quickly. So you've got to have that relevant skill, able to seize those opportunities. And I think one of the other areas is that to bring in people with experience. Experience is a hard thing to find, because you might have 10 experienced people in an area, but you have the requirement that would take 1,000 experienced people to be able to deliver on it. So part of the model that we use in data analytics as a service is to make sure we've got the right mix of experience, as well as people being able to deliver against that experience, or
Yeah.
deliver against the need. And what that does is it's got a twofold benefit. The one is you getting access to some very deep capability. Equally, you've got the ability, and for us as well, is to grow people in the space, because there aren't 1,000 skills out there. There's 10. So yeah, how do we build that 1,000? And that's part of the mindset that we follow as well. And data analytics as a service also allows us to do that.
Yeah, and I'm also a bit curious about how that actual model works. As I said, most companies, of course, maybe buy a tool or license a tool, or
Yeah.
of course have some people internally that are using or doing some things regarding data and analytics. How does the data and analytics as a service model actually work? And I think we've discussed that earlier as well, off recording, let me say it like that, is that it's more focused on actual outcomes and actual solving
Right.
business problems.
Yes.
Can you talk us a little bit through how that works?
Certainly. One of the important things to note, and maybe going back to the garden service analogy, is that every garden is pre-existing. Every garden has its own characteristics, has its own nature, has its own way in which it works. So when we bring in data analytics as a service, we don't get rid of the garden. We actually go into the garden and say, what can we use here? And what are the tools and technologies that the company feels comfortable using? Obviously, if we are asked to advise, we will advise on what is required, but we will go in. So one of the things that we try and do is we try and be technology agnostic in terms of what are the tools that are used. We bring in the data discipline, but we equally have people across the various technology stacks to be able to implement within the data ecosystem that exists within that customer. So that's part of what we do. The second part of it is I mentioned the experience. So what we have is whenever we engage with a customer, we bring that experienced person as the lead of what's happening. So they will be the constant thread. They will be the commonality. The people who do the work are led by that person. So, and again, you've got people at times where you've got to do data engineering. At times you've got to do data modeling. At times you want to build out the next wave of machine learning model. So you've got to bring in the right capability, and they're not landed there the whole time. They're there on demand as the needs of the company kind of grow and come to the fore through the engagement.
Yeah, and I'm interested in to learn a little bit more about actual real world examples of how
Okay.
this would actually work. Is it possible for you to share some case studies, some transformations that you went through with some clients? Obviously, you don't have to name any names, and maybe even specifically focus on what the actual, maybe quantifiable outcomes of these projects were. Because in data analytics, obviously, most of the time the goal is like, where can we find some efficiency? Like, where is the opportunity? But it's pretty hard to really tie that down to actual numbers and whether that insight that you gained from data analytics has actually contributed to it. So can you talk us through some of those examples?
So maybe I'll pick on one example as it kind of covers the business criticality of data, as well as how we've managed to solve, or we're part of the solution for the customer. So we're working with a customer that is in the utility management and micro billing space. So what they do is they will, in complexes or student accommodation, they will manage the utilities and make sure that the costs and the billing is apportioned correctly to each of the tenants. People are getting the right bill at the right time in the right way. And what that demands is that there's got to be monitoring of the utilities as the utilities are consumed, electricity, water, and so forth. That's got to be collected, and then it's got to be processed for billing to make sure that that billing is fair, that the amount that the customer needs to keep in their wallet is correct. So without undercharging and without overcharging. So right charging is important, and that is all based on data. So what we did is we worked with the end customer to first of all put together a data architecture that they required, because in this case the data that's coming in is the lifeblood of the business. You can't bill without the data. You've got to know what the utility utilization is to be able to raise the bill. And you've got to be able to understand, has that bill been paid? So those are the two sides of it. So what we did is we worked with them to be able to create the data platform that the metered data, the IoT type data, landed in that central space. And then that became a source of being able to process for billings and then get the information back. So we brought in a capability to do that architecture and then build out that data layer. So the data engineers who could process that data potentially at scale, because the business is scaling up. So their volumes are increasing month on month on month on month. So you've got to create resilience in the data platform. So we built that in, and now we're sitting at the next level, which is how do you provide to, sometimes you're working with agencies or landlords who are managing a set of properties. They want overall reporting as well. So now we're working with the customer to be able to build out these reports that are consumable by the landlord, as well as the information going to the wallet for the tenant to utilize. So that's the type of space. So we brought in data engineers, we brought in data analysts. We haven't done much machine learning in this space, but it will be something that we see as the next wave.
Yeah, I think that's especially a good example of what you mentioned, like business criticality. Like in most businesses, data is very critical. In this particular case, I have been working in energy as well.
Yeah.
Where I was also working with meter data and those types of things, who can really understand the criticality of good, accurate, and timely data. So I think that is an even better example of not seeing it as a value add or a nice to have data analytics, but in this case, it was actually business critical. And if that wasn't set up well, the business will probably not be there anymore.
That's right.
And you've already just brought it up, machine learning, AI. Obviously, everyone is very interested in AI. Like there's a lot of possibilities with it. But I want to dive a little bit into the how as a company that you can assess whether you're ready for AI.
Yes.
And I think I've discussed this quite often during the podcast already. Tons of possibilities, but if your foundation in the company is not in place, it's very hard to drive real, reliable, continuous value out of it. So I want to ask you the question, how can a company assess whether they are even ready to implement any of those new AI machine learning solutions that are out there?
Yeah. So I think AI is a really interesting space. It's very exciting. I mean, we've heard the possibilities and the promise of AI for years and years and years. And I think over the last 18 months, certainly since the release of the large language models, AI has become more and more part of what we do. So it is a incredibly exciting space. It's a new wave. It's a new inflection that the last time I saw something like this was probably about 20 years ago, when people were excited about what is this thing called the data warehouse. Now that's old school. Now you've got AI in place. But for an organization to seize the opportunities in AI, I think one of the key questions to ask is, what is it that you want to do? And why would AI make a difference in that area? So if you can answer, this is what I want to do, you can actually start picking apart the AI story to say, what part of AI do you utilize? Are you using something around content generation or something like that, where large language models come in, or starting to create structured content? Large language models have a great importance there. The second one is, are you wanting to pull in models that have already been pre-trained by the mega vendors, such as image recognition or sentiment analysis, and there's a whole set of them now. I think there's even more now than there were about 18 months ago. And then the third leg of that is to say, is there one question that you have the data for that you believe you can answer? So is it production efficiencies? Is it reduction of faults? Is it something where you can predict customer engagement, that type of thing? So if you've got the data for that, that is a useful model. But it all starts with, what is the question that I'm trying to solve? And then from there, you break it down. As you're going through the layers, so okay, we believe we want to do customer churn, or we want to predict a customer's propensity to purchase. Do you have the data? Becomes the next question. And then it's delving into, okay, this is the data that I've got. And then you've got to ask the question, is it the right quality? Because if you're training your clever models on data that is of dubious quality, you are going to be in trouble. You're going to be forecasting the wrong things. You're going to be making decisions on data that's got error in it. So you answer the question, you then assess, do you have the data to do that? And then you look at, okay, if you don't have the data to do it, how do you fix it up? And secondly, if you do have the data to do it, how do you take it through that modeling process to leverage the capabilities that exist within it?
Yeah, so it all always comes back to, even though how great the possibilities are of AI, it always comes back to your foundation. It always comes back to garbage in, garbage out. That's the old story that's always present. If you put in bad data, you train it with bad data, even though how good or great this tool can be, it will not work in reality.
Yeah, that's right.
So you obviously have are working with a lot of businesses. I would guess that most businesses also asking questions like, what can we do with AI? How should we prepare for it? Like, what is it that we should do? Can you talk us maybe through some of the real life challenges, real world challenges that you see in those types of businesses who are actually trying to achieve something from AI? And you probably have already told some of those challenges based on that 3-step model sort of that you explained. But can you maybe give us some hands-on, some real world examples of that as well?
So in reality, I think there's far more questions than answers around AI at the moment, especially with the new large language models or generative AI that's come out. Is where do you use it? So there's a lot more questions that are in place there. There are answers that are starting to come out, but the one area that I have seen a massive leap in, and I call it the sharp end of AI, is on the machine learning side. So machine learning has been in existence for a long time, but it's become so much more real. The models exist. You don't need to build a model. The ways in which you use the technology are a lot easier to be able to become more an AI practitioner or machine learning practitioner than somebody who actually goes in and has to have an advanced degree in AI to be able to, or machine learning to be able to utilize the capabilities. So one of the areas that we've used, and I'm going straight back to our personal scenario, is that we do a lot of interviewing and hiring of people. But what we need to do is we need to look at, if you get 1,000 CVs, how do you look at the top 100 as the primary without putting in just plain filters? Because filtering is the typical kind of nature of the game, where you're just filtering out, okay, I want somebody with this number of years experience. But you miss a whole load of other nuance or context around that. So what we've done is we've actually built out a machine learning model. I like to think of it as our propensity to hire model. So who are the most likely candidates that will come in? But to be able to do that, what we've had to do is look at who are the experts around hiring in those roles. So you've got to bring the human back into the AI challenge. You've got to bring them in because you're modeling your initial assumptions based on what a human experience is. And then what you do is you start saying, okay, these are your features. These are the things that we're going to do. Here's your training set. And you run it through. And then the human still needs to validate the output, because there's so many biases that get built into any model that you create. And sometimes those are relevant, but in a lot of cases, you may be excluding great capability because you've introduced certain biases. So you've got to bring in the human at every stage to be able to assess what's happening. There is even a term out there, they call it human in the loop. And what that is you've got the human element in the use of AI until you trust that it can perform without you. So I do think that certainly in our propensity to hire model, we still have significant human in the loop, because it is important that you assess all the things that are being provided back to you. But I will say that machine learning model has helped us significantly in being able to target the people we know will be a success in the company.
Yeah, and I hear that quite often, that people say, definitely use AI, use it for the first 80% of the thing that you're trying to do. Get the first groundwork up and running, go through all of the questions and those types of things. And then obviously, and as you mentioned, also during the process, but especially in the end of the process, make sure a person validates it. Make sure a person puts their knowledge and their experience onto it. Even though you can fill AI and ML models with a whole lot of data, and a whole lot of idea, and a whole lot of knowledge and experience, there are so many things that have to be considered for. And again, maybe for lower level tasks, less important tasks, you can actually have AI do 95-99% of the work.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned yourself, with the hiring, with selecting the right people, that is a very crucial part of running your business.
That's
Because
right.
still the people drive the business. I want to take a look at the future as well, Ryan, with you. Obviously, there's a lot of developments right now in regards to AI. Everyone understands that data is the lifeblood of most businesses. Where do you see the future going based on your experience, based on your knowledge, based on your the discussions and conversations that you have with people?
So I do think that on just the pure data layer side, the continual kind of growth in the storage, the acquisition, and the processing of data will happen. And what's been exciting to see is how that's scaled up in the last 5 years. And that's continuing more and more and more. I do think that as part of that, there's going to be that data governance element that comes in. Are you pulling the right quality of data? Where does it come from? It's still going to be there. So that area I think it's just going to get richer and richer. And yes, maybe enhanced quite a lot by the capabilities of AI to look at that space to make sure it's optimized, or the data is in the right cleanliness or format. I do see that the growth of AI is going to be pulling the data market forward. So it's going to be one of those inflections that you've got to look at, because it is going to change the way you interact with things. I mean, yeah, I could ask you and say, has something like ChatGPT changed the way you interact with creating content? I know it's changed
Definitely.
me. I know it's changed the way I interact with content. It's changed the way in which I engage with certain types of information. That's going to carry on. But I do think that AI, in its total sense, one of my favorite models is actually the Gartner hype cycle, where things go through the stage of this inflated expectation, and then it drops down into a disillusionment, and then people realize, okay, this is what's going to actually happen with it. I think there's elements of AI that are still hyped, that still need to go through that dip. But do I believe it will come out to the side of productivity? Yes. And I believe it will come out there quickly, because that is where a lot of the hyperscalers are investing. And as soon as you get them investing, you know that there is something there that needs, attention needs to be paid to that. So I believe that AI will become more embedded in what we do. We will figure out the different types. We will figure out the different use cases, and we will start engaging with it in very different ways. So I do think that embedding of machine learning, large language models, cognitive services into the things that we do will become the way of business in the future.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Ryan, I want to really thank you with in this great conversation. I think we discussed quite some interesting stuff. Obviously, AI, very relevant, very many companies are trying to see like how can we gain value from it, where should we start. And I think the whole conclusion still is your foundation has to be in place.
That's right.
You have to have the capabilities, you have to have the people in order to actually derive value from it, instead of just trying to implement that newest. And as you said, most use cases are still on top of the hype cycle. It's very, very hard to do that without that foundation. Thanks, Ryan. I really enjoyed it.
Yes,
If there is
thank
someone listening and that, well, is thinking, well, I really would want to talk to Ryan, would want to learn more from Calybre, where can they find you, or where can they find the company?
Okay, so for the company, we are quite visible on LinkedIn, but our website is www.calybre, spelled CALYBRE.global. So it's calybre.global. And if you want to email me directly, I know I'm putting it out there, but it's ryanj@calybre.global.
Perfect. I will make sure that those links and that information is in the description as well, so people can find it easily.
Thanks.
Thanks again, Ryan. Thanks for the great conversation, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.